everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Members Only subscription page. As we continue to move into the month, there's so many amazing astrological things going on that I'm just been having a hard time picking what's the most important thing to talk about this month. And also, integrating being able to how to read these concepts when we're looking at a chart. So I felt like because this month in May is a very, very significant month because the North Node is going to move into Leo. Now, I will get in a little bit about the nodes, but being that the North Node is going to move into Leo, our lives are going to radically shift, radically change. Some of you may be already feeling it. So I want to take this month of May 2017 and talk about this shift, give you guys some, insights to take with you to get ready, and also talk about how this can apply to all the 12 houses. So I'm going to go through the houses. So this will be a combination. Basically, the concept I want to really imply, I don't know if that's the best word I could use, is how to understand transits, because that's all about part of reading a chart. So these videos, as I'm working through how to understand astrology, how to read a chart, we're going to be taking the energy that's happening at the time and learning from that too. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I'm excited about this month. I have learned a lot about and really began to pay a lot of attention to the North Node energy, North Node, South Node energy. Now, like I said, the eclipse goes backwards, okay? It takes approximately 18 and a half years for an eclipse pattern to repeat itself, okay? Has a lot to do with the sun and the moon and when these certain things shift, okay? So you can go into more detail of exactly. But what we do know is that when this happens, when these shifts happen, and based on the shift that we're born under, okay, has a lot to do with our life path, our focus, our future. So when you're looking at a chart, okay, I want to tell you guys this. First and foremost, yes, look at the sun real quick, look at the rising, look at the moon, get a glance. Who is this person? Okay, and then go straight for where the heck is the North Node or the South Node. How old is this person? This is going to tell you how the energy actually fuels the whole chart, because the North Node energy is the drive behind everything. Now, if we take this to like practical terms, let's take it to practical terms. Practical terms would be, if it takes 18 months, okay, for the North Node to be in one sign, then the people that are born within an 18-month radius of you, whether it's before or after, depending on where you are in that degree. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say you're born with the North Node in Aries at 15 degrees. Well, people born 9 months before you and 9 months ahead of you will embody this energy. So I think the universe is so amazing in how it sets up groups of people to all share in a certain mission that are about the same age and understand each other. So that's why sometimes when it comes to your specific generation, you'll start to notice there's really is very certain similarities and patterns to where we're all headed. You can see if really want to be an intuitive astrologer. Facebook is a fabulous place to study energy and study cycles in your relationships and friendships. When people are sharing, when you see all the people that, you graduated with all the same week talking about, I just got the job, pray for me, I'm waiting for the job, got it, got it, got it, got it. It's like, yeah, they're all on that same cycle. We often see that with things that are difficult, people passing. You'll see waves of it coming through the Facebook. My father's in the hospital, my mother's in the hospital, these different things. Well, there's certain cycles that we all share. And the more that we just observe this, you can just kind of go, and just start to notice. And then we can, remember I said in the very beginning, you want to learn astrology, follow the questions. Follow the questions. What are your questions? What is being asked of you? What are you intuiting out there? Wow, this is interesting. This is a pattern. I wonder what this means. Okay? So again, we can learn a lot from that. Now, North Node energy is very intense. So let me talk a little bit about it, a little bit more about it. When you are born, when all of us are born, we come into this South Node energy, okay? So I've shared with you guys, for example, I have a Libra South Node and an Aries North Node. So when I came into this world, about the first half of my life, about up to your first Saturn, okay, you're living in your South Node energy, okay? Once you make it through your first Saturn, you begin to start to head towards this new way of thinking, but it's so foreign to you that it just can't be right because you're so used to thinking and are conditioned a certain way. So growing up in my life, having a Libra South Node, I also have Mercury and Venus there in my 7th house. Okay, so let's kind of look at this for a minute. Let's talk about this. It's going to apply to where we're headed in this series. So if I have Mercury and Venus and Libra on my South Node, now they're within a 5-degree orb, and it's in my 7th house of partnerships. That is a story. Okay, that's a storyline. Now, it's a pretty big storyline, actually. Now, some of you may look at your South Node or North Node and say, I have absolutely no planets here. Well, you know what? Good. No, it's not that it's good, but when you have a conjunction with a South Node, the first half of your life, often you have a huge blind spot. You have a huge blind spot. Or you feel like, you're pursuing this concept. Like I was always pursuing relationships and partnerships. I was the person that at 14 was ready to get married. I got married at 19. I wanted the picket fence. I wanted this thing. All my relationships and friendships took on business junctures and connecting because I wanted this Libra experience. But because it was in my South Node, no matter what I said, Mercury, no matter what I loved, Venus, I always seemed to had come up short, come up empty. It didn't quite do it. I had the things, I had the friends, I had the relationships, but I always felt empty. I always felt like it wasn't enough, like this big empty hole. I would outgrow people, outgrow relationships, outgrow friendships, get bored with things, have to move on, always looking for the next, trying to capture this ultimate Libra experience in my 7th house. But because my South Node was there, guess what? Yep, it didn't happen because had it happened, had I maintained these fabulous scenarios and was able to, have it, I would have always been in it and stuck there. And so the universe wanted to show me in my future that there was going to be a better way, another way. But even though you come into this earth, I already really, when you come into your South Node, you've already really embodied that experience. So it's kind of like, that's why it was so empty for me, because somewhere in my nature, in my DNA, astrological DNA, I've already been married. I've already had 100 businesses. I've already done all this, and nobody else could get it. Like, don't you get it? This is how you do it. But because, I had such a high ideal, I couldn't even attain it. Okay? I couldn't even attain it. So what begins to happen often, because like I said, as you move into your North Node energy, it's a lifetime experience, okay? You also have to look at the fact of where is the North Node now. It's very similar to how we do transit. So, for example, okay, North Node, I have a North Node in Aries. Every 18, 19 years, I will have my North Node return. So it happens when you're born, it happens about 18, 19 years old, and it happens at like, what, 36, okay? And then, it kind of, you kind of have every 18, 19 years, you're going to have this return. Um, when this starts to happen, oh gosh, hold on. We have to have Einstein here a minute. He probably just saw me. He's like my watchdog. When people drive in, he tells me when people are coming up. That's what he does, though. All hours of the night, yeah, it's fun. When people drive by. Okay, so these North Node returns are very, very, very significant because they can ultimately change the course of your life in the moment you're going through that 18-month cycle. And they ultimately will change the course of your life. Now, we have lots of different transits that come in and give us little jump starts, like when we have a Mars return, we get a jump start for about 8 weeks. We get a little fueling to get us through the next 2 years. And when that energy, gets on us, then, we attract things and we can make things happen. We have like this, steroids from heaven power from up above. And that's good. It's a little 8-week jolt. But what happens when you get an 18-month jolt? A lot of things can happen during an 18-month jolt. Now, I got a message from one of you guys and was just sharing that this is your North Node coming up, your North Node return in Leo, coming up on May 10th. Okay, we're having this shift. And you were scared because I'd mentioned, look back what was going on in your life potentially 18, 19 years ago. There may be a little clue to what might be resurfacing to some degree. So it's like looking back at that time, you were like, oh my gosh, that was really, really, really a hard time. And it is scary when you start to become aware that, wow, there's really cycles. Now, we could not know that these patterns repeat and return and what they mean and how we can make the best out of them. We could not look, because if we don't look, we don't know, and then it just kind of happens to us. It's going to happen. The change is coming. But what my goal through this series right now is to empower us at this time. I'm going to take the reins of the North Node energy instead of being like in a tidal wave of the North Node energy, and you're going to ride this baby out. Okay, so I want to encourage you to start. Now, I understand why there's a little bit of fear. So I'm going to talk just briefly here a minute, a little bit about some of the things that I personally look back on and in my study of my personal North Node so that you guys might, go and look at your own as well. So, I am a Virgo, okay? But I have a North Node in Aries, all right? I have Saturn in Aries. Not too tight of a conjunction. So you want to look at the degrees. How tight is that degree with the South Node or North Node? Okay, I have Saturn in Aries at 24 degrees, and I have a North Node in Aries at 9 degrees. But 10 degree, and it's it's a 10 degree is going to have a conjunction is always going to have an effect. The tighter, the more potent. But because I'm a Virgo, right? I have the Sun, I have Jupiter, I have Pluto, I have Uranus in Virgo. When the North Node just went through Virgo, we're at the last days here. We're at the 1 degree here of moving into Leo right now. The last 18 months was a very, very, very intense 18 months for me. So it doesn't always mean that you only get these effects because your North Node return. North Node in Virgo probably will affect me more than my North Node return because I have so many planets in Virgo, okay, in my 6th house of health and different things. So the day, literally, like the week that the North Node moved into Virgo last year. I think it was September of 2015. My mother is also a Virgo. We're a week apart. Literally the week that the North Node shifted, my mother fell and broke her hip. I'll make another note. Saturn had also moved into Sagittarius that week, and Sagittarius rules hips. So my mother broke her hip, and I had to become her full-time caretaker for almost a year. Because from that, she got pneumonia, and then she had a stroke, and then she had to have blood transfusion. Like all these, like a domino effect of her health just completely was destroyed. One thing at a time. Like everything came up. And she's like 78 years old. So it's like, and all of a sudden, I got this fuel of energy to take care of my mother. Like nobody could stop me. Doctors couldn't. Like I am taking care. I protected her. I was at the hospital. I slept by her bed. I was just like obsessed with taking care of my mother. And I remember now, like recently when I was talking to my mother, it's been almost 2 years now. She's like, I hope I don't fall again. And I'm like, yeah, I hope not, because I don't know if I'm going to have that same energy to take care of you. Because like when the North Node fueled my sun, Jupiter, Pluto, and Uranus, my whole, I got what I needed to fulfill a karmic duty to my mother, to fulfill something I needed to fulfill. Virgo in the 6th house is the ultimate caretaker. Virgos are the Mother Teresa. So I had this whole year of Mother Teresa. I was like the ultimate Mother Teresa. And she's like, you're so wonderful. I'm like, I know I am. I don't know why I'm so wonderful. But I was literally had like beyond energy to take care of her. Now, the other thing that happened is that she going through the whole hospital scene, I hadn't been around hospitals in a lot of years. So I hadn't really been with somebody that sick, life or death sick, month after month after month, where we kept having these like life or death situations are really scary. I had to make a lot of decisions at like decision moments, calling 911 and getting, all of those things. I had everything I needed. They even let my mom come home because I was willing to do all of the, like I had to do her, I don't know, what do you call that right now, but I had to give her antibiotics intravenously, and it was, they had to come out and teach me how to do it, and like I was a nurse, like I became a nurse. And I mean, I have those skills because I've always taken care of animals, but even everybody was like surprised, and I was like, well, I'm not really surprised, but I also did know now, especially looking back, oh my gosh, I had, this energy that I needed. And my details were so sharp, because the North Node in Virgo is giving and fueling this part of my brain to be able to take care of somebody. But the other thing that happened, because I was in the hospital with her a lot, is I could see how many things they were giving her that literally like wasn't working. And it opened up my mind and eyes. I was already studying it, but it really brought me into a deep study of herbal therapy and of going back to the earth and of, using medicinal products that, herbal products and things that I got turmeric root to help her pneumonia. And literally, like, I believe that's what ultimately saved her life, because the antibiotics stopped working and all the things the hospitals were doing were like, we've done, she's on the most expensive medications. Like, this is it. So I, through this process, opened up a whole new world for me. Okay. Now, I believe that during that 18 months of a really hard scenario, it forced me to have to live. When you live life or death with something, you get real clear about what's important, about your priorities, about what you're doing. And you also, like me, opened up not only, yeah, I'd like to, drink more, eat healthier, I'd like to grow some herbs. No, like these are serious life and death potential healing agents. And I have to be a part of this because I watched it save my mother's life. So I'm out here now through this experience, figuring out growing and trying to grow things. I have 12 acres. It's like it opened up a whole new life for me. But the universe had to show me it's more than just, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. It's like we're going to take you through why it's actually so important. Okay. So you know, when the North Node moved into Virgo, I was a little scared because, okay, now I'm going to take you back a little bit. When the North Node was in Virgo almost 20 years ago, my daughter was born. My father died 7 weeks before my daughter was born. I was pregnant at the time. I went through a breakdown of my business. I went through a breakdown of my relationships. Just as the last 18 months, I've also had all my relationships were under this Virgo microscope, and I had to deal with toxic issues because Virgo is all about releasing toxicity. Okay, the stomach, it's got to go out the other end. You know what I mean? And I say that because you have to understand that these are not just spiritual concepts. You have to look at the sign medically, spiritually, and emotionally. When we talk about these things, they're all connected. It's not just about eating better during the North Node in Virgo. It's about evaluating toxic relationships in your home and toxic things in your life. Could even be that you didn't take care of a water leak and now there's mold on the ceiling and that's toxic and you've got to get it removed, and North Node in Virgo showed you that. So these nodes come in and they bring intense focus on particular scenarios in your life. They affect us all differently. Because I had a lot of Virgo, I experienced a lot of the North Node in Virgo. I experienced a huge thing. And being that my mother has a lot of Virgo, like it brought Virgos in my life to deal with Virgo things. Like I had to like master my Virgo skills through this experience. Now, when I did a little study looking back at my personal North Node in Aries, this happened in 2006. And 2005, 2006 came into at the very beginning, January of 2006. And that was the beginning of another breakdown in my life. Certain people came into my life during that time that would change my life forever. I was able to see clearly my power for the first time. I was 36, 37. So, this North Node energy came also at a time when I was going through Uranus opposing Uranus period in my life, which will happen to everyone. So that's why they call it the midlife crisis. But that's why, when we're going through these changes after our Saturn return, we start becoming a completely different person. Problem is people don't ever talk about this. So when you start going through it, everybody's like, what's going on with them? They're different, what they're not, I don't know. Well, we're trying to figure it out. So a lot of times we don't even know. I went through the breakdown of a 20-year marriage during my North Node return, the beginning of a breakdown. Because again, I think the North Node in Aries coming out of the South Node in Libra triggered this in me at the age of 36, 37, triggered in me, a pioneering spirit. It triggered in me, like, I can't let anybody stop me. Nobody's going to stop me from being me. And I had given myself up so many times in my early years with that South Node in Libra. So when the North Node triggered my North Node in 2006, I started feeling empowered. But nobody wanted that for me because they were used to me being in a certain box. And I was even like thinking something was wrong with me for having these empowered thoughts, because I was also very, very much, been raised in the Christian church. So everything about my life was how to be submissive and how to give and how to just trust God and how not to use my own brain. Like, I am not putting all of that down because I think there's a place for those things in context. But and then maybe it was my interpretation of those things. But at that point in time, I had given my voice away. And all of a sudden, this other voice, this Aries voice, starts coming through and out my mouth. It's like, excuse me? I'm not, it's like, Even when it came out of my own mouth, I was shocked. When this happens, yeah, you can lose relationships. You can have breakups because you're changing. And so sometimes we look at these things and we say, oh my gosh, I don't want all these things to go. These are the things that are my security. But what you have to understand is many of those things are there for a time. But if you want to grow, if you want to take life to the next level, like we have a choice. You could stay. I mean, you could stay, at any age you want mentally, if you choose to not, grow through these things. People do it all the time. So you'll know someone, they could be 40, but you'll say but they act like a teenager still. They have a 14-year-old mentality. Something happened somewhere along the line where, they either didn't heed the call. Maybe there's other things going on. I mean, that's a whole other topic, but my point is, I could get off on that topic, but, my point is we get stuck. We get stuck sometimes, and we don't take advantage. And that's my point of these videos, is to get us to really take advantage and to realize, we're all on this earth together. We could say, well, if it was up to me, we wouldn't have evil. And if it was up to me, we wouldn't have death. And if it was up to me, we wouldn't have loss. And if it was up to me, we wouldn't have poverty. But what you have to understand is that all of those things create a polar opposite. We wouldn't value life if there wasn't death. We wouldn't value loss or gain if there wasn't loss. We wouldn't value people, and we forget those things. Often we get in our complacency of life that something will just always be there. So, we've all suffered those things. And I know sometimes we think, well, we're afraid. Don't be afraid. If this is your North Node return, get on. Get on the saddle. It's going to be a little ride, but embrace it. Journal through it. Feel it. Think about it. Watch everything going on. Document it like you're writing a story, because you're going to write a whole new story during this time. And it's going to be absolutely amazing. So what I'm going to do, this is pretty much my first introduction video, kind of like I've been doing. This one's going to be 1 of 4. Let me know if you guys like this. This is just the intro and kind of getting us on track to go, okay, North Node energy, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for somebody else? Now, when I get into the houses, I'm going to talk more about it and more about it, in terms of how it affects through transit and the houses and different things. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of my personal experiences. That there's more, but give you a little nutshell. That these are very life-changing times. So let's get excited. let's be, let's take this, like I said, take it by the horns. And by the end, because here I am, okay, here I am, and I'll close this first session with this. I'm at the tail end of my 18-month in Virgo. My mother made it through. I'm growing chamomile all over. I'm bottling this up. During the time that the North Node hit in conjunction with my other planets, I had major breakthroughs in my business. I launched my time twin study. Now, did I finish it yet? No. I launched my time twin study. I launched a couple of very important studies that are out there and documented in the public to show that, time stamped, that, I came out with this on these times. The universe didn't really let me totally finish anything. I kind of planted seeds everywhere during this time of my life. But I noticed, because I was journaling this experience, and I noticed when the North Node would hit the degrees of the planets that I had Virgo in, I'd have brilliant ideas, at least in my own mind. At least they were brilliant in my mind. And that's really all that matters, that made you feel good and that made you feel like you're contributing. But it's fun. It's fun to really watch how this operates. And I took it on because I knew what was happening. And, in the end of that, my mother like I said, got better. My children helped me. They watched me take care of my mother, and now they are like so close to my mother. My daughter has a North Node in Virgo, so she was my helper the whole time. She's 20 this year. While I was taking care of my mother, my daughter was having her North Node experience, being a part of this experience. So do you see? This stuff can get deep. This stuff can get fun. But I challenge you guys, go back, find out, what North Node was going on in very significant times in your life. Sometimes you can just take the date of a significant time. You want to think, go back, stick it in the birth chart calculator. What was going on that day in the sky? Where was the North Node? Was it how was it affecting your chart? Okay, so I'd love to hear your comments below after you guys go play around with this a little bit. It's really easy. These are private videos on this page only. But comment below or send me an email. I want to interact with you guys. It'll help the videos get so much better. And I'm also going to be using some of you guys' charts to do some studies and do some videos. So if you want to have your chart, analyzed under a how-to kind of mentality, I'm not going to be reading your chart as a personal reading, but to give some samples of charts, and it'll give you some insight, of course. And then I can use your chart, so it'll be much more exciting than just anybody's charts, right? Okay, you guys, so stay tuned, and I'll be back with the next 3 videos. We'll be going through the houses with the North Node in Leo. All right, thank you.